Hi BookTube, my name is Swan. I am just one reader, and today I am making a reading wrap-up for the months of January and February. These are all books that I have previously mentioned in my two most recent videos, which are book reviews videos in which I talk quite in a lot more detail and more depth about these books. But the reason why I wanted to make a very quick reading wrap-up, which is this video, is because I think it's more likely that people will watch wrap-ups, monthly wrap-ups. So I just wanted to try this format. So this is going to be a very fast-paced, very quick, not very in-depth video, but I just really want to sort of encapsulate in just one synthetic video all of the books that I have read thus far in 2021 in January and February. So if this kind of format works out for you, you can let me know and I can keep on making this kind of more synthetic monthly or bi-monthly wrap-up videos on top of making the more in-depth, longer book reviews videos. Okay, without any further ado, these are the books that I have read in 2021, January and February. The first one, and this again is going to be very sort of superficial. The first one was Singular Sensation, The Triumph of Broadway by Michael Riddle. This is the follow-up nonfiction book to his previous nonfiction work, Razzle Dazzle, The Battle for Broadway, and this one I gave 4 stars to. I don't think it's as engaging or as amazing and gossipy as the previous one was, but still this is just a really great book, a really great not an introduction, because if you don't know about the theater, this might not be a great place to start, but I do think this was just very interesting. It was filled with really amazing facts and anecdotes and very interesting stuff about the economics of the theater and the business of the theater, the artistic side of the theater. It covers some really interesting and more recent times in Broadway history, sort of like the 90s with Rent, and then it goes all the way into present day with the COVID-19 pandemic. Very interesting, 4 stars. Then I read one of the saddest and most bitter disappointments, which was Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb, the third and final book in her Farseer trilogy. I really love the Farseer trilogy. I think it's filled to the brim with really amazing characters and world building and magic and ideas and social commentary, and it just has a really great aftertaste. You know, it's something that I feel in my mouth whenever I am reading something by Robin Hobb. I just really enjoy sort of feeling her words in my mouth while I read them. There's a musicality to her writing. Really enjoyed the series, but this final installment was bad. I gave it 2 stars. I don't think it's a good book. I think it's very badly plotted, and even though it has some amazing scenes and character work and dialogue, the book is incredibly bloated and it just sort of loses everything. And yeah, this book was just bad, but the trilogy is really worth it, and as you can tell, I am eagerly anticipating reading more Robin Hobb. Then I read The Party by Elizabeth Day, which was sold to me as a really fast-paced, interesting, social thriller with a lot of bite and with a lot of action and with a lot of interesting human relationship kind of conflict. This is one of the worst books I have ever read in my life. It's so generic and so mediocre and so preposterous and ridiculous and absurd, and it's mind blowingly bad. There's nothing remotely interesting about this book. Maybe if this is the first book you read in your adult life, maybe it has something to surprise you. But even then, I think no. I genuinely believe this is one of the few books that I can say, don't read this book. Just stay away from this. This is trash. This is like 1 star. So no. Then I read something really wonderful, The Year of Reading Dangerously, by Andy Miller. Andy Miller comes off as a very snobbish kind of person, like a very pretentious person, honestly, very highbrow, and he's like, even when he's trying to be lowbrow and like coming down to earth, you can still feel like no, you're just coming from a very highbrow, like elevated position, and you're just trying to make yourself appear like you're not that, but you are. But anyway, Andy Miller is, this is nonfiction, of course. You probably know that. He talks about how he challenged himself to read all of these like highbrow literature, and how he encountered these works of literature, excuse me. So he reads like the Master and Margarita. He reads all of the Russian classics like War and Peace, and he reads all of the complicated classical masterpieces that every good reader should read. This book is a little pretentious, as I said, but I still found it really, really amazing and funny and warm in some places and really human in some places. So I enjoyed those few chapters in which I could relate to the author. And I think he actually discusses some really interesting issues about why we read in the first place and what kind of reader we want to be individually. I think that's a very interesting topic, the identity of the reader. So I think I gave this, again, like 4 stars. It was pretty enjoyable and easy to get through. So the next book that I read was The Inimitable Jeeves by P.G. Wodehouse. This is my favorite book of the year so far, 5 stars. P.G. Wodehouse is unmatched, in my opinion. He's amazing. His flair, his flamboyancy, if that's even a word, his characters, his weird kooky scenarios, wonderful dialogue, effervescent and luxurious writing, and it's just delicious. It's delicious. Nothing gives me more joy than P.G. Wodehouse, and this is my first encounter with Jeeves and Wooster, the main duo, the main characters in this story, so I absolutely devoured it joyously. Then I read the Gustav Sonata by Rose Tremaine, which I think I gave it 3 stars. It was a little bit of a mixed bag for me. I could appreciate some of the elements that Rose Tremaine had in mind at the beginning of the book, but then towards the final act of the book, I thought it was just not very successful. Personally, I don't think she wrote it or structured it very well. So the idea is good, the execution, not so much. 3 stars. Then I read I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. I really loved this. It's maybe not as good, in my opinion, as his follow-up novel, Foe, which is really amazing and more people should read it. But I really, really loved it. It's fun, it's chilling, it's absolutely horrifying, but in a very like kooky, weird, fun way. And it's dealing with philosophical issues and with mental health issues, which I love because I am a psychotherapist and psychoanalyst, so I really enjoy the way, the device through which he explores the things he discusses in this book. I don't want to spoil anything for you because this is a very mysterious, enigmatic, and really ominous kind of book. Really loved it. 4 stars. Then I reread Rebecca by Daphne Du Maurier because I wrote a dissertation paper about Daphne Du Maurier and Rebecca specifically. I adored rereading this. It was such a treasure. I loved it way more than I did the first time. I gave it 4 stars as well. I don't think it's Daphne du Maurier's best book that I've read so far. I need to read more, of course, but it's just such a great time. Then I read the biography of Daphne du Maurier. This is Daphne du Maurier, The Secret Life of a Renowned Storyteller by Margaret Forster. I found this book to be incredibly illuminating and very detailed, and it really offers a very comprehensive perspective on her life and her conflict with identity and sexuality. Really recommend this biography if you're interested in Daphne du Maurier, although it's not long, but it does go into a lot of detail about like pretty much every single thing that she did. But it's really good, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I really wish that I had read this book in a different way, or in a different time, in a different moment in my life, because when I read this, I was just coming off from Du Maurier and from writing my paper, so I was really like sort of still thinking about Daphne Du Maurier and Rebecca and all of that. So I feel like I couldn't really devote all of my energy and all of my mind space into this wonderful piece of work that is East of Eden. This is a book that I could appreciate more on an intellectual, abstract kind of level than on an emotional, like satisfaction, like real enjoyment level. I just, my mind was not there completely, and I feel I regret that. I regret that, but I still gave it 3 stars. It was not an enjoyable experience for me, but that's just because of the way that, you know, the circumstantial things from my part. Then the final book that I read at the final days of February, I believe, or maybe the beginning of March, but I'm gonna include it here anyway, was The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, the first book in a trilogy that he's called the First Law Trilogy. And I gave this book, I think, 1 star or maybe 2 stars. Not a good book for me. I buddy read this with Leo from A Little Book Live. He enjoyed it way more than I did. He actually gave it 4 stars, and I could not disagree more, because I thought this book, even though it had some good qualities in the writing and in the characters, I ultimately found and still find this book completely irrelevant. Maybe it's because it's the first book in a trilogy. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I would have to read the entire trilogy to find out how this book feels as a part of the trilogy. Because if this is just merely an introduction, I can understand it. But I just don't feel compelled enough to keep on reading. I genuinely could not care less about this world, the story that is pretty much inexistent and inconsequential here. So I am not reading any more Joe Abercrombie, at least not this trilogy. I don't think it's just the right fit for me. So those are all the books that I read in January and February. And let me know if this bi-monthly or maybe monthly wrap-up format is still working for you, just because I know that not a lot of people are inclined to watch longer videos where I dedicate like maybe 6 or 7 minutes for each book. So thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments down below all of your thoughts and opinions, and we can have a discussion about these books. Thanks for watching. I will see you on the next video.